But now we know Theresa May wants another general election on June the 8th. First of all, she, as you say, has to get a vote through Parliament. Let's find out now from Liberal Democrats and from a Conservative MP too about what they think. Alistair, Carmichael from the Liberal Democrats, Iain Duncan from the Tories. First of all, will you vote for a general election? Do you welcome that or not?
We're well up for the fight for the 8th of June, if that is when it is going to be. This is a tremendous opportunity for the Liberal Democrats. We are now the only party in British politics that is putting the positive case for Britain at the heart of Europe. This is the opportunity for people who are not happy with Theresa May's hard Brexit, taking us out the single market, taking us away from the customs union, to make their views known, and the way you can do that on the 8th of May is by lending your vote to the Liberal Democrats.
Now, Theresa May has made this sound like it will be a vote about Brexit. She says part of the reason why she's changed her mind about an early election is because parties like yours want to grind parliamentary business down. You want to reverse the will of the British people. She has no choice. Well,
I think if you are somebody who wants to see Britain remain in the single market, in the currency union, if you reject the idea of a hard Brexit, then you've heard it from Theresa May already that just 9 Liberal Democrat MPs are able to make life sufficiently difficult for her. Just think what we could do if we were back to the strength we had again before 2015.
How confident are you that you can make gains? You of course had a terrible general election, winning 8 seats then, 1 by-election since then.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had a very difficult time in 2015. That is, I think, well known. I think now people see the difference that Liberal Democrats did make in the coalition government. I think they can see for themselves what majority government has been like with the Conservatives. And you know, it's not a pretty sight. It's not a good time to be poor or to be young or to be to be lacking opportunities in this country. You get no help from a majority Conservative government, but if, as Mrs May wants, this becomes an election about Brexit, then you know Theresa May has said she wants a hard Brexit. The Labour Party have said they will not stand in the way of that. The Conservatives, the SNP cannot take any more than 1 seat from the Conservatives. The only people who can make a difference if you want to see Britain remain engaged with the European Union are the Liberal Democrats.
Iain Duncan, former Tory Cabinet Minister, are you surprised by this decision? Theresa May said she did not want an early general election. Why do you think she's done it?
Well, I think everyone will be surprised because the hands of the Prime Minister are always to keep this quiet until she announces it. I think she's made the right choice. I think the public has got enough time to realise that with Theresa May they've got somebody very focused, very clear. She makes a decision, she has real strong leadership. But I think she's right also that at the moment we have a government that was elected before the referendum, and it means right now we have a problem because in the Lords there's been a lot of talk about delaying and blocking this and making it very difficult to get it through. She's right to clear the air, to have a mandate, to come back and say, right, the British people want us to get on with this so that we can negotiate properly in Europe, and I think that's the right thing to do from a position of strength.
But there is a risk here. I mean, only just over half of the British people who voted wanted to leave the EU. If she makes this about Brexit again, isn't there a risk?
It's not about Brexit, it's about electing a government with a strong mandate to both get on with Brexit but also to carry on with normal domestic business. And the key thing about all of this is the reason for this general election is that right now there is a disproportionate state in the House of Lords which has now got a chance to vote on this. For example, you have 100 members of the House of Lords who are Liberal peers but only 9 members of the House of Commons. So I think resetting that balance and making it very clear that you have a mandate in the Commons for Theresa May and the government to get on and run this so that we actually have a proper, strong, stable government over the next 5 years, which is both able to do Brexit but also strong enough to do good domestic legislation.
I'll come back to Alistair in a second, but before that, actually the real reason is that Labour are polling 20 points behind the Tories. Jeremy Corbyn's leadership is in trouble. Theresa May's looked at that and realised she can make a lot of gains.
Yeah, I think that's a secondary issue. I think the reality is that she really feels strongly that she needs that mandate. Now, of course, the Labour Party has its own particular problems, and I suspect there'll be a number of Labour MPs who will want also to see this general election for internal reasons. But the reality is that for Theresa May, this is a bold, strong, serious decision made by somebody who has complete confidence in their leadership. And I think the public, as they've shown in the polls about her personally, really genuinely feels that she is the right kind of person to lead them.
Her polling ratings are high, aren't they?
Iain says that this is the reason. It's no such thing. What you've heard from him is the excuse. The House of Lords did not stand in the way of the government when it came to triggering the Article 50. She got what she wanted through that, albeit that even that limited provision had to be brought kicking and screaming from her as a result of a court case. So, you know, it is opportunistic. She is doing something now that she said categorically she was not going to do. But this is how she has operated since day one. She is trying to run this country not from our national interest, but from the narrow party advantage of the Conservatives. This is just the most recent example of it. It is utterly opportunistic, but I tell you, it is an opportunity for the Liberal Democrats, and we are not going to pass it up.
But for you, you may well make some gains, but if she is heading for a landslide, as the polls suggest, what difference can you make? The
only way that you will stop a Conservative landslide, and you have to be very careful about trying to predict the future in politics these days.
As the polls suggest.
But the only thing that will stand in the way of a Conservative landslide is Liberal Democrats taking back the seats that we lost to them in 2015. That is happening week in, week out in council by-elections up and down the country. You will see that happen again, I believe, come the general election day.
Iain Duncan, there will be some Conservatives in the southwest of England who probably aren't that chuffed at this announcement. They will fear that they may lose out to the Liberal Democrats, but presumably Theresa May, you think, will look at the weakness of Labour, and that is what's tempted her.
Well, I think most importantly, she herself personally wants a mandate to be the Prime Minister elected by the British people. I think it's quite reasonable for her to want that. The second thing is she believes that it's important, with the most important negotiations we've conducted probably in 40 or 50 years, to have a mandate to do that with strength. And the third area is she also needs, therefore, to have a government that can get all of the domestic legislation through as well. I think if you add all those things together, this becomes a very sensible decision. I think, my instinct is, that there won't be a single Conservative MP that actually says they're unhappy about this. Every one of them wants to get this done so that we can all come back here and say, hopefully we get elected, we can't take that for granted, but if we come back elected, we can then say, now we can get on with our business and we can stop the nonsense that is, you know, well, you don't have a mandate, all these arguments have been going on, you know, the Liberals have used this. You don't have a mandate, you weren't elected as Prime Minister. Well, let's call their bluff. And let's put this on the table and say, now here's the chance for all of you to say, let's go out and fight that election and come back, let the British people decide who they want to lead them and where they want the leaders to take them.
If this was about Theresa May having to have a mandate of her own, then the time to have the election would have been July last year, maybe in the autumn. But she said at that time categorically she wasn't going to do it.
It would have been the wrong time.
I think that what you see now is that the temptation of the poll lead has just become too much for her. She needs to be cautious here, though. It seems to me that there is a lot of complacency and just a measure of arrogance in this announcement today. They are taking the voters for granted already, and as I've said already, the way that you reject that complacency and that arrogance is by giving your vote to the Liberal Democrats.
I don't think that's the case. I don't think she's in any way taking them for granted, and quite the contrary. You don't take an electorate for granted by going back to them and asking them, can you decide who you want to govern and how strong you want that government to be? And that's exactly what she's asking for. Now, Alistair and the Liberal Democrats say
careful what you wish for.
Well, you want it. You want the general election. And Theresa May has quite rightly said we need to clear the air and get a clear mandate. And I think we'd all agree about that. So I don't know which is the party that doesn't want the election. Maybe they're not in this interview. But we need that mandate.
Okay, Iain Duncan.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.